like that.
Awesome. Yeah, it's easy to do. Actually, I have lots of them. I have Flintstones background.
Oh, do you? That's awesome.
Every time Francesca Moy says Flintstones, I put up the picture of Flintstones.
Yeah.
Cool. So we should be live in this amazing second group today.
Yeah.
How are you, Casey?
I'm really good, thank you. This is fun.
That's okay. I'm just double checking on the Facebook page to make sure. Hence, my head is bent down at the moment. Let me just refresh my page and make sure we actually are live. Yes, we are. We're live. Awesome. And I'm talking and saying, are we live? More than likely. So welcome, Casey, to this interview. And we've just come off another interview, but that's fine. So I'm just going to check in with you if you can tell people who is Casey Lightbody and how has she come to where she is now?
Yes, so I'll say go back to the other group if you're not in it to listen to the whole backstory, but I'll give a really summarized version. So I'm originally from Zimbabwe. So I spent my school years and university years in Zimbabwe and South Africa. I studied university there and I studied a business degree majoring in marketing and then followed my heart to the UK. I was set on traveling the world. It's one of my big values is travel. I absolutely love it, and fell into the corporate status quo, if you like. Worked my way up my career ladder at Citigroup in London to vice president in the securitization fixed assets department, specializing. Well, my role was in account and relationship management. But I'd always had this dream of owning my own business and following in Dad's footsteps. And so when we immigrated to the UK, from the UK to Australia, 12 years ago, I finally decided to take the leap into entrepreneurship. And I started my marketing consulting business, which then grew to a marketing agency. I had a team of 5 or 6, and it grew to 6 figures in 18 months until I realized that what I'd created was completely misaligned to what I thought that I wanted to create. And so I decided to burn that business to the ground and start from scratch 4 years ago. And now I have a business that completely lights my fire. I adore the women that I work with. And now I help introverted, quiet, sensitive women from around the world to be able to step off the sidelines and really create success in their lives and businesses on their terms. And so that's kind of really summarized version, if you like.
Yeah, cool, awesome. So I know you said that you had a marketing, you were in marketing then, and now obviously grew your own business, and now you're kind of doing a bit of marketing now as well.
It's more business coaching than marketing, but yes, we definitely touch on the marketing element. Yes.
Beautiful. So looking at marketing, for example. So, there's obviously a lot of levels and differences in marketing. How would you say marketing has changed to what it was to what it is now?
Oh my gosh! So this is a huge question. I love this question, Carmel, because this for me. So I've been in marketing 20 odd years, right? And when I moved from the UK, I took in amongst that time I took 6 years off to raise my boys. And so when I came back into marketing, I freaked out because so much had changed on a tactical level, right? Because when I was doing marketing in the UK, we didn't have things like Facebook. We didn't have, in fact, there was no social media back then.
Thank goodness in some places.
Exactly. Blog posts, blogs had just literally started back then. And so I really was concerned when I stepped back into that field that I'd have to really upskill. And I did from a tactical level, but here's the thing, marketing hasn't changed in terms of it is all about relationships. At the end of the day, marketing is about relationships. So when you are really clear on who you want to speak to, what conversations you want to be part of, and how you can actually create those conversations, that's it, right? That, like, I think for so many people, we overcomplicate marketing, but for me, it's around where do you need to be to actually attract those leads, to actually engage them and build those threads of connection to then be able to convert them into sales. So, so from a strategic level, nothing's changed in marketing, and yet so much has changed from a tactical perspective. And I think it's really important for so many people, for so many business owners. I feel like they dive into that next best thing, the next shiny object. And for me, it's all about actually understanding from a strategic level, okay, well, what does that foundational piece look like, and then what are the tactics that you need to actually bring in to actually enable you to achieve the strategy behind that, you know. Whereas I think so many people are like, oh, I need to have my own Facebook group, you know. Well, is that true? You know, ask the question, is that really true for you? Do you need to be doing the next best tactic, you know? Do we need to jump on TikTok now that that's the latest fad, you know? So yeah.
No, I haven't.
Exactly.
Because I know one of the things that I often say to my mentees, etc., would be when they say to me quite often, and I'm sure you hear this too, but I'm no good at marketing. I would go, really? Have you ever got a job? You know, have you? It's like, well, then you've had to market yourself. So my statement at times then is, marketing is everything you do before a sale. It's every communication, every touch point, every relationship built, everything before the sale. It's not just, oh my God, I've got a product, I have to do a marketing campaign. Well, yes, there is that. But the rest of it is the brand building, the everything like that. It's all part of your marketing. Would you agree with that?
Wholeheartedly, Kamal. And what I will say as well is that I hear from so many of my clients too, is that, but I'm not getting any sales. Well, I'm like, what is it that you're doing before actually expecting the sale too? Because you've got to have built that relationship. You can't say to the first person, let's get, like I talk about the whole dating scene too, right? And I'm like, you can't just meet the guy on the first night and say, right, we're getting married. You know, there's got to be some courting involved. Like, you can't expect someone to kind of, unless you're in a product-based business and it's a transactional exchange, then fair enough, that's a different story, you know. But I think for my clients are in the service-based industry, and so you've got to do all that there is work to be done, and it's all those steps that you need to take before actually asking for the sale. That's so important. But I agree with you. We've all had jobs and been able to market ourselves. I talk about it with the kids too, you know. So how many times have you persuaded them to put their shoes on before you get to school, go, you know, brush their teeth? We're all in the job of marketing or sales, whether we like it or not, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes marketing, and in particular sales, gets a bad rap in terms of people have a negative connotation around it. And they go, oh, I don't like sales, I don't like it. It's like, well, hang on, this is what makes the world go round as well. So if you were to talk about building relationships, for example, what's the number one tip or best advice you can give anyone in order to start building a relationship?
Be curious and give would be my two biggest pieces of advice, I think. Like and again, for introverts, I think that is a natural skill set that we have, is that we are active listeners. We are deeply curious, which makes us really good marketing and salespeople, I think, because we are able to really listen. So actually being curious, like I think that's one of the reasons why I've been so successful in terms of building connections with influencers like Amy Porterfield and Jennifer Kim and Selena Sue, and, you know, some really big names in the online space, is because I'm really curious and I'm really interested in learning from them. And I don't ever go into a relationship with the expectation that there's going to be something in return. Like for me, it's around giving, right? Like I want to give. I will hop on a call and I'll give just because it feels like, well, it's quite selfish because it feels good for me, but hopefully it makes the other person feel good. And I think that's the first step in connection. But then it's not to then forget about it, because from there, I talk about it being those threads of connection. And so if you think about that first piece of that first outreach that you do, it's like, okay, well, that's that first thread. And you really, if you want to kind of do business and really make relationships last the distance, it's got to be a real strong rope of connection, you know. So every touch point for me is building those threads of connection so that it feels like a really strong
So do you automate that process, for example?
Yes. Well,
Yes.
yes, as much as I can. I'm not good at systems, so don't talk to me about systems. I'm about to give
Oh no, that's one thing I've had to learn to be good at. And it happened the other day, which was marvelous. We had a members call with our members, and my phone was going ding, ding, ding beside me, where there was sales coming in for our 2-day and our half-day workshop while I was on the call. And I'm going, thank Christ for automation. So you need to get the automation happening.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
So many women in particular say the same thing, but I'm not good at systems. And until recently, my sentence was, I'm not the techie person, but I am the techie person.
We're changing that story, right? I like the reframe.
We have to. Yeah, we absolutely have to, because I was caught up on it actually by other people, because I had learned so much but hadn't acknowledged what I'd learned. And I was still saying I'm not the techie person, but they were asking me techie questions because they thought I was. And I was like, oh, maybe there's something here. We have to do that.
Yeah.
So I love that curiosity and the giving value. And I agree totally with it. But I'm going to ask you a bit of a kind of a sideways question in terms of, we hear a lot of this giving value. Now, I hear from some people, oh, but it's my IP. And then I hear other things from other people. My question to you is, when do you not stop giving value, but when do you make sure that the value is monetized? That you're not just giving value all the time.
I would say, Kamal, that so there's a couple of places I want to go here. One is, for me, I've really built my business by really aligning with influencers. So one of my big lead generation activities is virtual summits, right? Yeah. So for me, it's all about so let's talk about that first, okay? Before that, because I want that, because then there's the client side as well. So in terms of actually how I've strategically built my business, one of the key activities was that I wanted to build my audience, right? And I wanted to do that by leveraging other people's audiences. So actually building those relationships with influencers, I think I started it naturally just because of my curiosity and my love of learning, right? And so there wasn't ever a point in time where I was like, okay, well, now that the balance is tipped, now I can kind of like monetize that, if you like. Like, I didn't actually strategically think about that. It was like, well, I'm just going to go because I just want to really get to know this person, I'm really interested in learning from them. And then when the opportunity arose, where I wanted them to speak, like, then I wanted to, there was an ask from me, if you like, to actually then monetize it. I felt really comfortable in that ask because we'd built those threads of connection already, and I'd really invested a lot, and I felt like I'd given with no expectation of anything in return, so that when I made the ask, it was really natural. Does that answer?
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I know that a lot of people struggle with that in terms of they're very much come from a servant's heart and they give. But when it comes to switching it to their perception of a sale, and that's quite often what we have conversations about, is how to go into the sale. And we often talk about how to get no is actually a really powerful way of doing it, by using calibrated questions to make it a no-brainer when you go to ask for the sale. But quite often people have that block around that. I can give, but now I have to ask them for money. It's kind of, oh, I don't want to, because I don't want to offend them. So I guess that's what I'm getting at.
So then let's talk about, let's talk about the client side too now. So for me, and this was something that I had to learn the hard way, because I am a natural giver, as you can tell. So actually finding that boundary of actually when do you take it and say, okay, well, I've given enough value, now we've got to actually ask for the sale, has been a real lesson learned for me. So for me, it's in that conversation where I felt like I've given the why and I've given the what, and I feel like I've given a piece of the how, if this makes sense. So I feel like they've got enough, and yet I'm still feeling like there's that level of inquiry, like they feel like they're getting it, but they haven't got the big picture. But again, it's got to feel really natural for me. So when I'm coming from this place of serving, it's got to feel like a natural progression for me in that conversation where I'm like, okay, so now that you're really clear on what it is that you need to do, and you've got a sense of the how, do you feel comfortable? Like, do you feel comfortable knowing how to actually go away and implement that? And oftentimes they'll come to me and say, no, I still don't, like, I'm still not clear, you know, and that's when I'll dive into the conversation and say, okay, well, that's perfect, because that's exactly where I can come and help you. Or they talk about they need the accountability and support, you know, like, okay, well, you've got the strategy now. Are you clear that you can actually go ahead and implement that for yourself? And they're like, oh my gosh, I couldn't do that on my own. I need that accountability. Again, it will come in. That's when I'll come in and say, well, that's how we can actually work together. So it's even giving them even more of the how sometimes, but then it's maybe too daunting for them to actually understand how they're going to move forwards with that. So I'm quite flexible with that. I think it's quite fluid.
Is that done in a group environment or one-on-one?
One-on-one.
One-on-one. Okay, so you're predominantly one-on-one.
Yes.
At the moment. Cool. So and great, thank you for sharing that. You're, as you say, absolutely, you're a giver. So tell me, how important are the words you use in your marketing?
They are absolutely critical. Words are speaking to the communication queen. I'm sure you'd agree with me, right?
You're preaching to the choir here. But I know that like I talk a lot about, you know, right message, right person, right time. And, you know, under that is copy, under that is video, images, marketing, you know, yourself, there's a whole plethora. But quite often people don't realize just how important, not just the words, but how you put the words in is important in it.
100%. So I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to who are tinkering with the design of their website or their logo or what have you. You know, come on, like I'll say that you could have the ugliest landing page, but if the copy really reads right, you will 100%, like that in itself is just streaks ahead of what it actually looks like, you know. And you're right. I think so many people really struggle with actually how to communicate that. And for me, the most powerful thing that I do for myself and do for my clients is even like really, again, it's that active listening piece of actually really getting inside the heads of your clients and understanding the phrases, the words, the way they express themselves. Because if you can actually take that and regurgitate, like literally it's a case of actually taking that and regurgitating it in a structured way, that will, people will say, oh my gosh, you read my mind. You know, I can't tell you how many people I've signed up coaches, you know, for myself. I'm like, how did you say that? You just read my mind, you know. And it's because today people have been listening, they've been listening really well, and you know, you've really been able to actually just really echo back what's going on for that particular person.
And it is, you're right about being a listener and putting yourself into it in terms of it comes from a me centricity from them. So you have to speak as if you're them. So whether you put it in inverted commas or you say, have you ever heard yourself say, or things like that. And people do go, and especially if it's their deepest, darkest desire that they won't already say.
Exactly.
Or they'll say it in a private one-on-one call, and then you'll go, oh my God, how does she knows me so well? She was a fly on my wall.
Yes. Exactly.
And how did you, because I know that we teach people various things depending on the length, but there's structure and a process to everything. This is the thing I love, when you actually understand the steps and the process. So I know we go from a 6-step process in copy to a 10-11-step process that we do in our 2-day one. So there's lots, you know, if you Google the structure of copywriting, it's not an illusion. It's absolutely not. It's there. But it's the actual process of how to do it. Where or how did you learn how to do that? Or is it something you're continually growing?
I'm continually learning. Come on, like I definitely think that is I think you will laugh at this too, because as an introvert, I always thought that I needed to be good at writing. And so when I first started my business, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to start a blog. Actually, the reality is I love to chat.
For an introvert that's so extroverted. What
I
the
know,
hell?
I know, and I don't love writing. So for me, it's a skill that I've had to learn, and I'm continually learning. And I will say that it's the first thing that I will outsource at any opportunity to, because it's something that I love to do, you know. So but it's so critical. It's so critical to actually understand for yourself that I think it's definitely a learned skill. So
and isn't it interesting you say that? Yeah, I would have said the same, that, you know, I'm not necessarily right. But when I get into a flow, because I've learned this, like I'm a brain dumper, I'll just go, I'll either type or write it down. But then when I put the structure beside it and go, well, where am I talking about that? Where am I talking about that? And I've started now that I'll sometimes write in the structure without even thinking about it, because it takes those two sides of your brain. I think that's what, not to hinder yourself and be creative in just writing it, or I take 5 or 6 of the comments people have said to me, and then I weave them into a few sentences in a structured way. That's because I would have said the same as you. Oh, I'm not really a writer, but when I get in flow now of it, I actually can write some, you know, when you look at something and you go, oh my God, who wrote that?
Exactly. So that happens to me. And I've got to say, so it's that piece about getting in flow, Kamal, that I think is so important, because again, as a classic doer, which I've alluded to, high achieving, tick off the list kind of person, it's actually about really creating opportunities to be in flow. And it's in those moments that I find writing comes really easily. And when I've read some of the emails I've written, I'm like, what the hell, where did that come from, you know? And it's actually, so typically, so I will actually, and I'm as structured as I am, I don't make enough time. And in fact, this is probably a reminder for myself to actually make time, because I create actually white space in my diary around energy management too. But actually creating time to have those flow, actually creating the flow moments. And I know that sounds really
no, I was going to say to you, because that's what I do. You talked earlier about putting everything in your diary. I put it in as creative time, and I just decide it's creative time.
Creative time, and make those opportunities. Because that's when I think, like, I'm a real, like, I'm Pisces, ocean loving. I love the water, and when I'm down at the water, I feel really in flow. So like, that's what I'm thinking as you're talking, like, I need to schedule some time down at the beach to actually have some time to write. Probably it's a good thing.
That's it, and bring the stuff, because, and I think that's quite often what people tend to do, is bring that left and right brain in. So while they're writing, they're being critical and going, oh no, put the punctuation mark here. Oh no, that's not the right structure. And that's the way I have learned. Do not do that. I'll just brain dump and then overlay the structure. Or quite often, my very good friend Sarah, who's a copywriter, so she will put the 6 points, so the 6 headlines, not headlines, but just points on it, then do a bit of a brain dump. And she actually talks about switching off your screen and just typing. You're not even correcting your spelling. I'm not too sure if might it be gobbledygook.
Yeah, exactly.
And then doing it, you know, cutting and pasting and whatever afterwards. That's what leads to flow. So put it in your diary.
Nice.
So tell me, what is the silliest thing you've ever heard somebody say about you?
What's the silliest? What is the silliest?
I like to throw in a few sideways questions.
I know, it's a curveball. Come on, silliest thing. Gosh, I've got to think about that. The silliest thing. So what's the question? What's the silliest thing someone ever said
about you?
I feel like I'm silly all the time, so I'm just trying to think of one particular moment.
For me, I always remember somebody many years ago when I was young, and he was a guy that, you know, we were all friends growing up. But my dad worked fairly close to where we lived, but from a young age, which was unusual in Ireland, I was allowed to use his car. So I was driving around at 17 and 18 in this car, but I always remember this guy said, oh, are you hanging out with Carmen Murphy? She's such a snob. I'm going, stop, I've grown up with you all my life. You've been in the same class as me. I'm not, and I always was I went up to her, I went, what do you mean I'm a snob? What are you talking about? We've always had fun. Yeah.
That's so funny. Well, yeah, I've got to say, like, I feel like, so I mean, I think because I'm quite an extroverted introvert, that I come across really social and, you know, chatty, like we talked about, chatty and things like that. So I think maybe one of the things is that you're not an introvert. Like, I think that's, for me, is like, that's probably the thing that's really standing out as you're talking about that, is that, Casey, you don't come across as an introvert, you know, and actually, like, I'm a raging introvert, and I'm getting worse. I hate saying that. It's not getting worse. It's just a personality style, you know.
I think you're getting more
And
comfortable with it.
more comfortable
Yeah.
with my introversion, you know. So I think that's probably the thing that really stands out to me, is that people not believing me when I'm saying that I'm an introvert, you know.
I'm the opposite. I'm an introverted extrovert.
Oh, wow.
It's so funny. So tell me, Casey, we're coming to the end of this interview, which, can you even believe just how quickly time flies when we're having a chat? It's been so awesome. So how can people, what's the best way for people to communicate or contact you if they wanted to after hearing you today?
Yes, so they can either contact me, my email is casey@quietcollective.com.au. You can head over to my website, the contact details are there, it's quietcollective.com.au, or you can head on over to Facebook and either friend request me or come and chat on Facebook, my Facebook page too, which is also Quiet Collective. So
you mean you haven't filled up all of your Facebook friends yet? They can still friend request you.
You can still friend request me.
I'm getting pretty close. Casey, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today. Thank you so very much for all of your tips and insights and absolute gold that you've shared with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Kamal. It was really fun, and I hope it was useful for your audience. Thanks so much for listening.
Of course. Okay, so it's bye from me.
Bye.